Hello everyone, we're back. I appreciate you guys continuing to support us here. I appreciate everybody coming back here to our program to talk with us. I want to talk about earthquakes. I want to talk about Cascadia earthquakes. I want to talk about emergency preparedness tonight. So everyone, please stand by with me. We're going to talk about it. It's getting very serious, as I reported last night. I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on. Okay? Last night we talked about earthquakes and we talked about the volcanoes over in the Cascadia area, the Pacific Northwest. Now, it's not just Cascadia that we're going to talk about tonight. Earthquakes can happen anywhere. And I'm definitely going to talk about emergency preparedness, being prepared for these earthquakes that are going to hit. I told you before, I've told you all before, earthquakes can happen literally anywhere and everywhere. They usually do. When earthquakes happen, great multitudes of people are disjointed. People become afraid. People don't know where they're going or even what they're going to do. That's why we want to talk about emergency preparedness. Okay? Now, I've talked about it before. I'm going to talk about it again and again and again. I want to make sure everyone realizes what's going on. I think it's very important. Now, I'm going to first start off this program tonight talking about earthquakes literally around the world. Literally around the world. I want to talk about this one here. This is a I shouldn't say very large. This one is a large 5.2 earthquake down in the South Pacific, south of the Fiji Islands. A large 5.2 earthquake. 5.0 begins with the large earthquakes. Earthquakes large are between 5.0 and 5.9. This is a 5.2. However, look at this earthquake right here. Okay? This earthquake is in the Loyalty Islands near New Caledonia. Okay? This is a very large earthquake here. This is a 5.7 earthquake here. A very large 5.7 earthquake. Ben Hutchins is here in the chat saying it's called depopulation this way. Ben Hutchins seems to think that earthquakes can happen by machines. Now, that's science fiction. That is science fiction. I do not believe that earthquakes can just happen because a machine sets them off. Yes, we have CERN, C-E-R-N. Yes, when CERN opens up with its electromagnetic activity, it could possibly cause an earthquake. It can cause all kinds of things. I don't want to focus on CERN. I don't want to focus on that other organization that starts with an A or an H. Please do not put that name in our chat room tonight. Mods, if anyone puts that organization that starts with an H, take it down immediately. Okay? I do not want YouTube to take this program down because we put up that facility that starts with an H. That H facility has facilities around the world. Norway, Russia, Alaska, over in Australia, and other places also. They do cause earthquakes. They cause all sorts of hate and discontent. Now, why do I know that? Back in 2019, ladies and gentlemen, 3 facilities that were H facilities triangulated an area over in Puerto Rico. I've mentioned this many times. They triangulated this area in southwestern Puerto Rico. A facility over in Norway, another one in Russia, and the other one in northwestern Australia. They triangulated this area in southwestern Puerto Rico and struck on December 26th, and then again 2 days later on December 28th, 2019. The first earthquake that they caused was an 8.0 earthquake. The second one on December 28th was an 8.4 earthquake. An 8.0 and 8.4 earthquake, December 26th and December 28th, right after Christmas 2019. We covered it. Emergency Management Associates was the first organization to even cover this earthquake. The United States said that it didn't have anything to do with it. United States Geological Survey said that those earthquakes were not 8.0 or 8.4. The United States lied about it. The United States lied. The United States Geological Survey lied. Those 3 facilities, Norway, Russia, and northwestern Australia, lit up Puerto Rico, causing huge earthquakes, major earthquakes, causing death and destruction. People were killed. Buildings and homes were leveled by those 2 earthquakes. The second earthquake, and I'm going to zoom in here and show you the town that this happened in, right here, along the shoreline of this town in Puerto Rico, there just happened to be a sandstone arch, a similar arch that you'd see over in the Utah desert, Arches National Park. This arch was on the beach here in Puerto Rico. The 8.4 earthquake leveled it, destroyed it, completely destroyed it. It was a sandstone tourist attraction. And the United States, okay, I'm going to say it, because it wasn't just Russia, it wasn't just Australia or Norway. Who developed this? Who developed it? The United States Air Force, with scientists in the United States over in Alaska, developed the potential. It spread around the world. USGS denied it happened until we put all the information out there. Then again, USGS had to come along a little bit later, and they said those were major earthquakes, but they did not say they were 8.0 and 8.4. They said there were 6.5 earthquakes. They were not. At the time, we showed you all the information about it, proving that they were major earthquakes. Major earthquakes by those facilities. Okay? This whole area was affected, all the way over to the far reaches in the western Puerto Rico. This whole area was affected. Now, look at these earthquakes here today. Off the coast of southwestern Puerto Rico. This is a 2.2 earthquake, and it's 7 miles southeast of Maria, San Antonio, Puerto Rico. 7 miles southeast of Maria Antonia, Puerto Rico. This earthquake here is southwest of Guanica, Puerto Rico. A 2.2 earthquake. A 2.2 minor earthquake. Guanica, Puerto Rico is a town that my friend Dominic lives and works in. Dominic is a captain for the Puerto Rican police force. I've spoken to Dominic many times. He and I are still friends. Dominic experienced that earthquake and his family. There was one time when I called Dominic, or he called me, I don't remember what, but we were talking on the phone and he had me on camera on his computer, and just at that point in time, early that evening, his walls and his curtains in his kitchen were shaking. And I asked him how bad the earthquake was, and he says it was at least a 3.5. To me, it looked like a 4.5 or larger. My buddy Dominic lives here. Today, this earthquake is a 2.2 off the coast. This earthquake, also in Guanica, Puerto Rico, a 2.5 earthquake. To the northwest, a 2.3 here. Parguera, Puerto Rico. Then we go over here to the northeast. This is a 2.3 earthquake. Let me lower the map here so you see it. Right there. That's a 2.3 near Palomas, Puerto Rico. Right next to it. Right here. This is a 2.2 near Indios, Puerto Rico. We are still seeing aftershocks. We are still seeing aftershocks of that 8.0 and 8.4 earthquake that happened in 2019. Over 4 years later, 4 years and 4 months later, we're still seeing aftershocks of an 8.0 and 8.4 on December 26th and December 28th. Incredible. Incredible. It's still happening. It is still happening, folks. We're seeing it. Now, USGS is only telling us about one earthquake here, south of Panama. They're saying this is a 4.6. It came out as a 4.9. It may be a 5.1. I have not had time to go in and verify exactly how strong this earthquake was. But it is at least a 4.6 earthquake south of Panama today. But the USGS has also been reporting earthquakes over here in this area just north of Panama, Costa Rica, also up here in Nicaragua, El Salvador. Look here. The USGS is not seeing or reporting any earthquakes here on the map. Why not? They originally reported the earthquakes, now they've taken them down. Over here in southern Mexico, there are 46 earthquakes here in southern Mexico. From the border of Guatemala and Mexico all the way up here to Puerto Rico. Or not Puerto Rico, I'm sorry, Puerto Vallarta. From here, from Puerto Vallarta here, all the way down here to southern Mexico here. All the way down here to the border region of Guatemala. Okay? A lot of these earthquakes are 3.5, 3.7, 3.8, 4.0, 4.1, and 4.5 earthquakes. 4.0, 4.9 are considered to be moderate earthquakes. They can do moderate damage. It's a proven fact. 5.0, 5.9 are considered to be large. 4.0, 4.9 moderate earthquakes. 3.0, 3.9 are considered to be small earthquakes. So we have a litmus of small and moderate earthquakes all up and down this entire region of southern Mexico. It doesn't stop there. It does not stop there. There are other earthquakes over here in northern Mexico here. This is not the only earthquake here in the Gulf of California. This is a 4.2 earthquake here. There have been dozens of earthquakes here today in the Gulf of California. Why is it that USGS is only showing one moderate earthquake when there's dozens of earthquakes there? 99% of the earthquakes here in the Gulf of California are moderate earthquakes. Moderate earthquakes. There has also yesterday been a 5.7 earthquake here in the same area. A 5.7 large earthquake. And now continuing moderate earthquakes. Before the 5.7 hit, there were moderate earthquakes, and now there are moderate earthquakes after as well, aftershocks. It's continuing to happen. Why are we seeing earthquakes here? Can anybody tell me why we're seeing earthquakes here in the Gulf of California? Because all of that energy coming from down here in Central America, down here in southern Mexico, is going up here. Why? Folks, this fault where that you see this earthquake on is a San Andreas fault. The San Andreas fault. This same fault line, ladies and gentlemen, runs from all the way up here in Northern California. All the way up here in Northern California, right there. Right here. Where you see my cursor here is called the triple junction. Now, I don't know why this map jumped. This is the triple junction here. Why? Because the San Andreas fault comes up here and meets here with the Cascadia subduction zone. This line that you see running north is the Cascadia subduction zone. The Cascadia subduction zone and the San Andreas fault also meet here with the Gorda escarpment. The Gorda escarpment. Now I'm going to reduce this to a smaller map here. Over here to the west, this fault line here to the west is called the Gorda Ridge. We've had many earthquakes in this region for the past, I want to say, 8 years. At least 8 years. This Cascadia subduction zone runs from here where it meets up in this triple junction area. It also runs up all the way along the coastline of the United States. All the way up here from Northern California, past Oregon, and up here in Washington. It continues northbound. It runs alongside the coast of British Columbia, Canada. It continues running north here, past the Vancouver Island area here, all the way up here to Queen Charlotte Island. Queen Charlotte Island. The Cascadia subduction zone. As I have reported in past months and years, we've had earthquakes here on Queen Charlotte Island and also along the Cascadia subduction zone that runs along the east side of Queen Charlotte Island. Earthquakes on the Cascadia subduction zone. The USGS is not showing any earthquakes here next to Vancouver Island. There are earthquakes here. Small and medium-sized, moderate earthquakes are here all over this area along Vancouver Island. Okay? A lot of them. We probably had 40 earthquakes here along Vancouver Island and offshore from Vancouver Island during the past 30 days. That's a lot of information here. That's a lot of earthquakes right here in this area. We've also had a lot of earthquakes over here at the mouth to the Gorda Strait here. This body of water running from the Pacific Ocean over towards Seattle-Tacoma area here in Washington is called the Strait of Juan de Fuca. This is right here, where you see my cursor here. This is the Puget Sound area. The Puget Sound area. Today right here, okay, this is the Olympic Peninsula here. This is a 0.7 microquake near Quilcene, Washington. 0.7 microquake near Quilcene, Washington. This is a 1.0 tremor here, also at Quilcene, Washington. Okay? Guess what? These are not the only earthquakes here. These are the only seismic events that USBS wants to tell us about. Rarely do they ever show us actual information. Only information that they want us to know about. That's it. They don't show us actual information. I talked to you about that last night. August Odin Prism Omega says Cascadia is getting ready to crackle. I agree. I showed you the information last night. I showed you seismograms showing what's going on at the volcanoes. I also showed you seismograms in this area showing earthquakes and slip strike faults here. Faults where we're having earthquakes. Orca Island, Friday Harbor, just to name a couple. Yes, we are having earthquakes here. USGS is denying it. As you can see, they're only showing 2 earthquakes in this region. That's a bunch of crap. That is a bunch of crap. Now, I'm going to show you a volcano here. This is Olympic Mountain. It is a volcano. In past sessions of this program, we have shown you Cascadia, or this Olympic Mountain volcano. And there have been earthquakes all over it. 2.0, 2.5, 3.0 earthquakes happening every day here at Olympic Mountain, a volcano. Okay? Over here along the coastline last night, we showed you earthquakes at Friday Harbor. We showed you earthquakes at Willapa Harbor, Washington, along the coastline. Earthquakes, tremors and earthquakes. I wanted to show you the tremor map from Washington yesterday. Guess what? The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network that caretakes the tremor map was not showing you any earthquakes at all. No tremors at all on the tremor map. So that's one reason why I showed you seismograms up here along the coastline, showing you not just tremors but earthquakes hitting all over this area. Because they're saying it doesn't happen because they're saying there's nothing here. As you can see right now, they're not showing anything here. That is a fallacy. It's an out and out lie. It is an out and out lie. Coming back here to the Puget Sound area. Okay, it wasn't just one tremor here. I'm showing you this 1.0 tremor over here in the Puget Sound area. It's this one here, a 0.7, I pointed it out. This other is a 0.2, and this other here is a 0.6. Puget Sound. But like I said, it's not the only events here. They're just not showing it. The only other event they want to tell us about is over here. Concrete, Washington. Concrete, Washington, a 1.0 tremor. Isn't that stupid? They're only saying that there are 6 tremors in this whole area. They're full of crap. The U.S. Geological Survey is denying it happened. They're showing one event over here at Mount Rainier. Look at this. Actually 2, I'm sorry. I just slandered USGS by saying 1. It's 2 tremors here. This is a 0.9 1.0 tremor here at Mount Rainier. It looks like it's at the top of Mount Rainier. It's not. This is a 1/4 mile deep inside the volcano. This other one is a 0.3 microquake, also a 1/3 mile deep. A 1/3 mile deep here. Okay? It looks to be near the summit of the volcano. It's not. It's deep inside the volcano. But they're not the only ones that are happening. They want to say there's only tremors here, but last night I showed you 3.0, 4.0, 4.5 earthquakes happening here at Mount Rainier. They are just denying they're happening. They don't want us to know. They have, in fact, silenced our ability to go in and see what's going on at the volcanoes. Sometimes they silence the activity, meaning they hide the seismogram. They hide the activity. That is a crock of crap. A crock of crap. Going here to the southeast. Smith Ferry, Idaho. We've had a lot of earthquakes and tremors here at Smith Ferry, Idaho during the past 3 to 4 months. Smith Ferry, Idaho here is a separate area from Yellowstone. You notice this area here, this is an earthquake fault. Smith Ferry, Idaho exists right here in this same area as this earthquake fault. This is a 1.2 tremor in Smith Ferry, Idaho. A 1.2 tremor. It's not the only seismic event here. We go further east. This is supposedly 13 miles west-northwest. It's not west-northwest, it's east-northeast from Smith Ferry, Idaho. This is a 1.5 tremor here. A 1.5 tremor. We can go further east, right here. Guess what we have here? Can you say the Yellowstone magma chamber? Idaho, the Yellowstone magma chamber here? That's exactly where this is. Okay? It's Challis National Park. Challis National Park right here. It's the western side of the Yellowstone magma chamber. Then we go over here. A lot of you have asked questions about Yellowstone. I'm showing you what's going on only because some of you have asked questions. We go up north here. This is Butte, Montana. Butte, Montana here. This is a quarry blast in Butte, Montana right here. There's a huge quartz quarry here. And they mine granite here as well. This is a 1.3 tremor at a quarry mine, at a quarry area. Okay? This is also 1.2 miles deep. You usually don't see tremors 1.5 miles deep next to a quarry. They're saying this is a quarry blast. This is probably just a tremor here next to the quarry, 1.5 miles deep. 1.5 miles deep here, guys. Incredible. Sleeping Volcano is also with us tonight. She says she's listening. Sleeping Volcano, that's fine with us. I'm just glad you're here. I'm just glad you're here. Our friend Sleeping Volcano has had some real extensive health problems, she and her husband. They've had extensive surgeries in the past short while. God bless you, Sleeping Volcano. We appreciate you being here. We really do. This earthquake here, Winston, Montana. This is a 0.6 microquake in Winston, Montana. Both of these locations are in the Yellowstone magma chamber, in the region of the Yellowstone magma chamber. The Yellowstone magma chamber goes all the way up here to the Canadian border. It stretches over here further into Montana and Wyoming, goes all the way down here to Utah, northern Utah, and then it goes up here back to the Yellowstone magma chamber here in Montana and Wyoming. The Yellowstone magma chamber is 11 Grand Canyons in size. It is huge. It is huge, ladies and gentlemen. Huge. Yes, we do have some earthquakes down here near Yellowstone. This is Alder, Montana. Alder, A-L-D-E-R, Montana. This is a 1.0 tremor here. We go further east into Yellowstone. Yellowstone. South here is Spencer, Idaho. Spencer, Idaho. Spencer, Idaho is near Island National Park. Island National Park. It's one of 3 calderas here in Yellowstone. One of 3 calderas here in Yellowstone. Island National Park. This is a 1.0 tremor here. We go over here into Yellowstone area, the Yellowstone region. This is the Red Canyon Fault here. The Red Canyon Fault, Richard Creek section. Richard Creek section. Folks, what we have here is at Hebgen Lake. This happens to be a 1.2 tremor near Hebgen Lake. Hebgen Lake is right here. Okay? In 1959, we had a 7.1 earthquake here at Hebgen Lake. A 7.1 earthquake. That 7.1 earthquake was not related to the Yellowstone volcano. It was a separate and distinct earthquake here. Today here you see this 1.2 tremor here northeast of Hebgen Lake. When that 7.1 earthquake hit in 1959, it caused extensive damage here. It threw a roadway, a county road here, into Hebgen Lake. It also allowed a cabin to fall down here into Hebgen Lake. A landslide caused that cabin to fall into Hebgen Lake as a result of that 7.1 earthquake. That 7.1 earthquake also caused unreinforced masonry walls to fall, to be destroyed. Fireplaces, chimneys, walls at schools fell because of that 7.1 major earthquake in 1959. I've done an extensive study about it. I know what happened. The Yellowstone magma chamber was disturbed, but that's all. It did not cause the Yellowstone volcano to erupt. I keep having people every day almost. Ron, I've heard the Yellowstone volcano is going to erupt. No, you didn't. The Yellowstone volcano is not going to erupt anytime soon. I want to make that point perfectly clear. The Yellowstone volcano is not going to erupt anytime soon, regardless of what you hear. I have done extensive studies on the Yellowstone volcano. It's not going to erupt anytime soon. If there's any change in that, I will tell you about it. But Yellowstone is not going to erupt anytime soon. Right here, this is a 0.9 1.0 tremor here west of Yellowstone. West of Yellowstone. Let's go over to the Norris Geyser Basin. The Norris Geyser Basin. Folks, this is where Old Faithful volcano, or Old Faithful Geyser is. Old Faithful Geyser. Okay? Norris Geyser Basin. There are no earthquakes here today. This is Yellowstone National Park. Further north here, up here, Madison River. Madison River. Madison Geyser Basin. Okay? Yes, occasionally they do have earthquakes here. Over here, this is the Mammoth Geyser Basin here. This is a 0.6 microquake over here in the Mammoth Geyser Basin here. 0.6 microquake here at the Mammoth Geyser Basin here in Montana. North of Yellowstone. Over here, this is Yellowstone Lake. Yellowstone Lake. Will you see my cursor here? This is Big Thumb. This is Big Thumb, Yellowstone Lake. Yes, recently, and I'm saying within the last 2 years, there has been a magma dike down beneath Yellowstone Lake, a mammoth dike. Let me turn this camera around because I want to explore with you what that dike is over at Yellowstone Lake. There is magma underneath Yellowstone Lake and a dike, a magma dike. Magma trying to force its way up into Yellowstone Lake. So far it's stopped. The magma dike is like this, just like I am showing you my hands right here. A magma dike. Magma has forced its way up to this point here. Where that magma dike is now is probably hardened lava. It's probably hardened lava. There is no more hot lava there, or hot magma down beneath the surface of Yellowstone Lake. Okay? There is a former magma dike, but I believe that that dike is now hardened lava. It's hardened lava. Now it could turn back into hot molten lava again if the magma from down, way down beneath Yellowstone Lake comes up again and engulfs that magma dike that used to be there, that lava finger that goes up there, that dike, and it turns into molten lava again. Right now, I believe that dike is now hardened lava. Hardened lava. It stopped. When that magma dike was active, it heated up the Lake Yellowstone. It heated up the lake here. Wilson just gave us another $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Wilson. We greatly appreciate that. God bless you for that. We greatly appreciate all your super chats, your super thanks. We appreciate your PayPal donations, and we appreciate your donations to our post box. It means the world to us to keep this program on the air. But folks, when that magma dike beneath Yellowstone Lake was active, it heated up the lake. I have actually swam in Yellowstone Lake before. It's a fairly shallow lake by all standards. It's a fairly shallow lake. Some parts of it are about 4 feet, 3 feet deep. Other parts go to maybe 8 or 10 feet deep. Okay? I've been there. I've been all over Yellowstone. I've been over here southeast of Yellowstone as well. Grand Teton National Park here. I've also swam in the lake over here at Grand Teton National Park. A beautiful area. Grand Teton National Park also has lava formations. And in fact, there was a scientific study done over here at Teton because a great big huge fissure, a great big huge long fissure opened up in Teton National Park. Earthquakes happened. An earthquake happened there in Teton National Park that opened up that fissure. But what they said is magma deep underneath Grand Teton National Park is what caused that earthquake. And that's very possible. Deep underneath Teton National Park. Okay? I've been there. It's beautiful. Wilson says that Tetons are beautiful. They absolutely are. My family owns a great huge piece of land over there just south of the Tetons. Isn't that fun? My family. Most of my family settled in southeastern Idaho. But we have a great deal of land just south of the Tetons there. It's absolutely stunning. It's absolutely stunning. Now, why did I show you that? Because people were asking about it. My primary influence tonight is to talk to you about what's going on here in the Cascadia region. The Cascadia region. We're going to have probably sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, and I personally think it's going to be in the next 5 years, that we're going to see a Cascadia megathrust earthquake here off the coast of Washington. In the same area off the coast of Seattle and Tacoma, Washington, right in this area. Right here you see the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and further west here you see the Cascadia subduction zone. Okay? Further west, you also see this jagged line here, this zigzag jagged line. This is the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The Strait of Juan de Fuca. Right in this area is where the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to occur. Fact. Fact. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to be approximately a 9.0 to 10.0 magnitude earthquake. A very dangerous earthquake. A very dangerous earthquake. Now, why am I talking about it? Some of you have asked me about it. That's one of the biggest reasons. But folks, it goes far deeper than that. That earthquake, even though it's offshore, that earthquake is going to raise all kinds of heck, fire, and damnation upon this area. It's going to raise all kinds of hellfire and damnation. Why am I concerned about it? Because thousands of people live here. Millions of people live in this area, along the coast of Vancouver Island, on Vancouver Island, over here in Washington, Oregon, and even California. Even California. The United States Geological Survey is not showing hardly any activity at all. That's a fallacy. That is a lie by any stretch of the imagination. All kinds of earthquakes have been hitting here. I showed you that last night. Earthquakes are hitting here up and down the coastline. Earthquakes are hitting here over in the interior areas, plural, over here in Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, Canada, all the way down here into California. Earthquakes are hitting. In 2020, actually December 26th or 23rd, 2019. December 23rd, 2019. There was a geological convention down here in San Francisco. The professor of geology at the University of Washington addressed the convention. He's a preeminent authority on the Cascadia megathrust earthquake and what's going to happen. He and his people and the people from the state of Washington University also have looked into it, as well as the authorities at the USGS. Now, I'm not talking about managers. I'm talking about actual scientists. The managers could care less. The managers of USGS could care less. Why am I talking about it? Folks, what he said that day matters. This was just 2 days before Christmas in 2019. What he said was the Cascadia megathrust earthquake could also keynote the San Andreas Fault. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake will be shaking all the way down south here. And it could trigger the San Andreas Fault right here. When it triggers the San Andreas Fault is also going to send that energy all the way down the coast of California. Not just the coast. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to trigger all the way down into Mexico. All the way down south here into Mexico. Why? You can see the Salton Sea down here in Southern California. The Salton Sea, guys, we just had an earthquake here. We just barely had a 1.4 tremor down here in Nyland, Calipatria, California here. A 1.4 tremor. This happens to be 1.8 miles deep. This seismic event here is 1.8 miles deep. Guess what, folks? This is on the San Andreas Fault. It's on the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault comes all the way down here, folks. You can see it here. You can see the San Andreas Fault. All the way down here through California. All the way down here through Southern California. All the way down here into northern Mexico. All the way down here into the Gulf of California. All the way further down here into southern Mexico. Along the coastline of southern Mexico. We believe the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to be felt all the way down here into northern Mexico. Northern Mexico. Now, folks, it's going to happen. Probably within the next 5 years. Scientists are saying probably 25 years. Why am I saying 5 years? What have I been showing you? What have I been showing you? Seismograms. I'm showing you that the seismic activity has been increasing. The seismic activity has been increasing, and the numbers of earthquakes have also been increasing. Scientists have been pointing it out that this is what's going to happen as things wrap up here in Cascadia. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. Down here in San Francisco, today, right here, just off the coast of San Francisco Bay, just off the coast of the opening to the entrance to San Francisco Bay. What do we have here? This is a 2.1 earthquake. A 2.1 earthquake west of the San Francisco Zoo. West of the San Francisco Zoo, which is right here where you see my cursor here. Okay? Where is the San Andreas Fault? Right here. This 2.1 earthquake is on the San Andreas Fault here. Now, what this professor said was going to happen, it's going to devastate San Francisco and every community north and south of there as well, all the way up into Canada, Alaska. Canada and Alaska. That mega thrust earthquake is going to devastate this entire region. It's going to be continued to felt all the way down into California here. Where are we at? This is Monterey Bay. Monterey Bay right here. I'm sorry I'm not even showing you this map. My bad. Let me get my act together and I'll show it to you. You need to know about it. Right here. This is Monterey Bay. Over here. See this earthquake I just talked about? At the entrance to San Francisco Bay here. 2.1 earthquake. 5 miles west-northwest of the San Francisco Zoo. Right at the entrance to the San Francisco Bay area. A 2.1 earthquake. Just northeast of there, this is American Canyon, California. Another 2.0 earthquake. Folks, this is also on a very deadly fault zone. A very deadly fault zone. What happened in 1989? October 1989. The Hayward Fault opened up with a 6.9, 8.0 earthquake. Yes, at the time they said it was a 6.9. Now scientists are saying that it was probably closer to an 8.0. And that's where this 2.0 earthquake is, on the Hayward Fault. Further to the east, the Calaveras Fault. This is a 2.0 also, or actually 2.1, also in Vallejo, California, on the Calaveras Fault. Interesting how this happens. The Hayward Fault runs along the east coast of San Francisco Bay. The Calaveras Fault is just inland from that, east of the Hayward Fault. Over here, look at this, Livermore, California, also near the Calaveras Fault. A 1.3 tremor here at Livermore, California today. How about this? This is a 0.9 1.0 near Alum Rock, California. The Calaveras Fault. Right here, just west of here, west of Alum Rock, is Seven Trees, California. A 1.2 tremor on the Hayward Fault. Notice how the two faults came together here? And the San Andreas is maybe 25 miles west of there. All three faults converge in this area. It gets even more dangerous when it comes down here to just east of Monterey Bay. This is a 0.8 near Gilroy, California. The Hayward Fault comes over here as well. The Hayward Fault gets even near the San Andreas Fault, and the Calaveras Fault also. This is one of the most dangerous areas in all of California, with all three major fault zones lining up right here. So when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happens, can you even imagine what's going to happen? Can you even imagine what's going to happen here? And the San Andreas Fault continues to ring all the way down here through California. This is Parkfield, California. Earlier last week, we talked about Parkfield, California. Last Friday. This is the capital, the earthquake capital of the world. I used to believe it was only the earthquake capital of California. It's the earthquake capital of the world. More earthquakes happen here in Parkfield, California than anywhere else. Today we had a 1.1 tremor here. Almost every day they have a tremor to an earthquake. Anywhere from a 1.0 tremor to a 2.0 earthquake, 3.0 earthquake, and even a 5.0 earthquake here in Parkfield, California. Imagine when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happens and it triggers the San Andreas Fault. Triggering the San Andreas Fault all the way down here. The San Andreas Fault here, where you see my cursor, is where the Garlock Fault opens up here. The Garlock Fault. Fraser Park, California here. Just northeast of here, Tehachapi. A lot of people have to drive Interstate 15 here in Tehachapi, California, every day. One of the most dangerous roadways to be on. The other reason the San Andreas Fault is going to be triggered by the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, and it's going to ring all the way down here into Southern California. Southern California. Down here today, the Elsinore Fault, La Habra, California. La Habra, California, 1.0 earthquake on the Elsinore Fault. What is this? This is a 1.8 2.0, Home Gardens, California. We continue to see earthquakes and also tremors here. Home Gardens, California. Just north of there, also in Home Gardens, we see another 1.0 tremor here. We go further south also here on the Elsinore Fault. What's going to happen here? This is another 1.0 tremor on the Elsinore Fault. You see the San Andreas Fault directly east of there. Directly east. Over here further south, on the San Andreas, what do we have? Indio, California here, on the San Andreas, a 2.1 minor earthquake. 2.1 minor earthquake. Then you see the San Andreas here going down here and running alongside the Salton Sea, where we told you about this other earthquake in Nyland, Calipatria, California area, a 1.4 tremor here. The San Andreas Fault comes out from underneath the Salton Sea right here. Out from underneath the Salton Sea. This whole area is going to be triggered, guys. It's going to be triggered by the Cascadia subduction zone. By the Cascadia subduction zone. Now, those of you who are listening to this program or watching this program tonight, you need to understand something else. 335 years ago, 335 years ago, when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hit just off the coast of Washington before. 335 years ago, it triggered a tsunami. It triggered a major tsunami. The tsunami wave was probably 100 to 150 feet high. It inundated this whole area here in Washington and Oregon. Inundated it. But that tsunami wave also crossed the entire Pacific Basin. It crossed the entire Pacific Basin here. All the way over here to Japan. The people here in Japan had a tsunami that day. Why do we know the exact day that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happened? Because the Japanese people kept excellent records. Excellent records. It's going to happen again. When the Cascadia megathrust earthquake opens up again, Japan is going to have another tsunami caused by that earthquake. Today over here in Honshu, near Fukuoka, Japan, a 4.5 earthquake. It's not the only earthquake that struck over here in Japan today. USGS is only saying it. They're only showing us one earthquake. There's another half dozen earthquakes that have hit here in Japan today. Even over here on the west side of Japan. Right here. This is the Noto Peninsula. A few months ago, we had an 8.4 earthquake right here. An 8.4 earthquake that struck right here. It killed over 300 people. Hundreds more went to hospitals. They were injured because of the shaking. Injured because their homes flattened. Their businesses flattened. Pancaked. Over 300 people were killed and hundreds more injured as a result of that quake. We are still seeing earthquakes hit here. 4 earthquakes today hit here. USGS not saying a word about it. 1.8, 1.9 tremors, 2.0 earthquakes, and 2.3 earthquakes hit here today. USGS not saying a word about it. That's typical. Earthquakes hitting here every day because this was a major earthquake here several months ago. Major 8.4 earthquake. We called it. USGS did not. USGS said it was very much a lesser quake and they were lying through their teeth as they normally do. Lying through their teeth. That's typical of what USGS does. Further south over here in the Mariana Trench, the Bonin Islands here, belonging to Japan. This is a 4.4 earthquake here. It's not the only earthquake here in the Mariana Trench. Over here in Taiwan, we had another earthquake here. Multiple earthquakes here today. USGS is showing a 4.1. A moderate earthquake over here off of Wellington Taiwan. What happened here? Just a few weeks ago, we had an 8.4 earthquake here. USGS says, oh, it was less than that. An 8.4 earthquake here. We're still seeing earthquakes here as a result. We're going to see earthquakes here for a very long time, probably years. Probably years. Just saying. Just saying. Let's go over Hokkaido, Japan, really quick before we go back to Cascadia. Just off the northeast coast of Hokkaido, right here. This is a 4.8 moderate earthquake. A 4.8 earthquake. Look where it's at. It's on a tectonic plate. Look at that. It's right next to a tectonic plate. A 4.8 earthquake. What is this other earthquake here? This is also another 4.8. Twin quakes. When was the first time we saw twin quakes? Back, you're going to laugh at this. January 3rd, 2019, over Ridgecrest. That's when we first started seeing twin earthquakes. This is a 4.8 earthquake and another 4.8 earthquake on the same fault line. A tectonic plate here. What is it? Folks, on this side of the Pacific, this is the Pacific tectonic plate. The Pacific plate. In this case, the Pacific plate is subducting underneath here. Underneath this Asian plate here. That's why we're seeing earthquakes here. Going up here, we see the Pacific plate here causing earthquakes. Another 4.1 earthquake here in Nadac, Alaska. This is a 4.0 earthquake here near Nikolsky, Alaska. This is not the first 4.0 we've seen. We've seen 5.0, we've seen 4.0, 4.1, and 4.4 earthquakes hitting here. Earthquakes are going to continue to strike here. We're coming here to see a major earthquake happen up here as well. Chignik, Alaska, 4.6. Kodiak, Alaska here. Larsen Bay, Kodiak, Alaska. This is a 3.1 earthquake. 3.1 earthquake. Over here in the Cook Inlet. The Cook Inlet here. This body of water coming out of the Pacific, northern Pacific here, going up towards Anchorage here, the Cook Inlet. This is a 2.2 earthquake that just struck here. A 2.2 earthquake, 44 miles deep. Another earthquake here, right next to the Cook Inlet. Another 2.1 earthquake here. Up here, Mount Redoubt. Near Mount Redoubt. This is on the north side of Mount Redoubt. A 0.9, 1.1 tremor here. On the south side, over on the east side of Mount Redoubt here. Tyanak, Alaska, 1.2 tremor. Right next to Mount Redoubt. Going up over here into the Hand of Alaska. I call this the Hand of Alaska. This is another 4.0 earthquake here in Buckland, Alaska. Another 4.0 earthquake here in Buckland, Alaska today. 11.4 miles deep. Okay? Over here. I just briefly want to tell you a story about this area. Russia sold Alaska to the United States. Alaska was sold to the United States by Russia. Over here. Right over here. This is Little Island. This is Bigger Island here. Bigger Island belongs to Russia. Little Island belongs to the United States. This body of water here is usually frozen over during the wintertime area. The wintertime period here. This whole area is frozen over during the winter. You could actually walk across from Alaska to Russia and vice versa over the ice in the winter. You may not have known that, but I just told you. I just found that out a few days ago. Just so you know. Let's come back down here to the Cascadia subduction zone. I told you here about the Cascadia subduction zone fault zone. The Cascadia subduction zone fault here. Over here is the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The Strait of Juan de Fuca also gets up right next to the Cascadia subduction zone right here. The Strait of Juan de Fuca goes all the way down here. All the way down here. It meets up right here with the Blanco fracture zone. This is the Strait of Juan de Fuca, or Strait of Juan de Fuca here. Juan de Fuca fault. The Blanco fracture zone meets up with the Juan de Fuca fault here. The Blanco fracture zone stretches down here to the southeast here and meets up with the Gorda Ridge. The Gorda Ridge right here. The Gorda Ridge stretches out here to the southeast and meets up with the Gorda Escarpment. The Gorda Escarpment. The Gorda Escarpment runs all the way here to the east and links up with the triple junction right here that I explained to you about a little bit earlier. That meets up with the San Andreas and the Cascadia subduction zone, the triple junction. At least now you have some kind of idea what we're talking about here. This is important. There's a reason that I'm talking about it. I want you to understand what's happening because it's going to affect all of us. It's going to affect all of us, guys. Now, what I have to talk about now is not necessarily pleasant at all. It's not pleasant. Folks, I've studied this. I've been studying this a great many years. Everyone needs to have an earthquake kit. This is absolutely mandatory. You need to have an earthquake kit. I promise you, you need to have an earthquake kit. Okay? I'm talking about an emergency preparedness kit. As I have explained to great detail, this earthquake is going to happen, probably within the next 5 years. It is going to happen. Okay? The coming Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to present a lot of risks to all of us. A lot of risks. There are no absolutely safe routes, and there are no absolutely safe zones following the upcoming Cascadia megathrust earthquake. There are only safer routes and safer zones. Some associated risks can be avoided entirely. In other areas, those risks can be reduced. My intent tonight, and I can't be here much longer than another half hour with you because I don't want to be here over 2 hours. I'm going to try to be here less, but I want to get this information across to you. My intent is to inform you of the associated risks with this earthquake so that you're going to be able to act for yourselves. You're going to be able to take those actions with your family, your children, and extended family to reduce your risk exposure following the upcoming Cascadia megathrust earthquake. I'm hoping by giving you this information that you're going to be able to make better decisions on what you're going to do and where you're going to go. My dear friend and moderator here on this program, here on the chat, says, I keep hearing I can't do this. And I've heard it too. I've heard it a lot. I can't do this, I can't do that. I can't never did anything. I can't never did anything. I can does everything. I can does everything. It's called mental conditioning and proactive action. Mental conditioning and proactive action is paramount if you're going to even succeed in saving yourselves and your family. I'm just putting that out there. I want to make sure you can. That's why we're talking about this. I hate talking about it because it involves risks. It could involve your life. That's why I'm talking about it. It could involve the saving of our lives. Demon Catman says Ron needs to change the date. I did change it early on after I came on the air. I noticed that YouTube changed it to April 13th. Go figure. It's April 19th. I did change the date. Thank you, Demon Catman. I appreciate that. Surfer Girl says, I thought we were on here today. I'm oddly confused. I'm sorry you're confused, Surfer Girl. I don't want to confuse anybody. Wilson said here, the little train that could, they don't teach that any longer. That's sad, because the little train that could can. The little train that could can. The little train that could made it all the way to the top of the mountain. It's sad that our own people don't even let this be. Our own people don't want to talk about this. Sorry, my camera fell. Sorry, my camera fell, guys. I apologize. But the little train that could did. He did. And there's a reason. Because he made up his mind that he could. The little train could and did. We have to make up our minds that we can. Plain and simple. We have to make up our minds that we can. And then do it. Do it. Like I said, there are no safe routes. There are only safer places and safer routes. Now, last night we talked about the volcanoes, didn't we? Few people currently can even recognize that the reactivation of the volcanoes and the volcanic fields has been occurring for years now. The reactivation of the volcanoes and the volcanic fields has been occurring now for years. There is current tree kill evidence If you look at Google Earth, go over and look at Google Earth tonight after we end this program. You're going to see a lot of trees laying on their sides around the volcanoes. Why? We talked a lot about sulfur dioxide lately, haven't we? Sulfur dioxide over in Hawaii, and sulfur dioxide near the erupting volcanoes, even over in Iceland. Sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. Here in the United States, Washington and Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, Northern California. Everywhere where we have volcanoes, we're seeing tree kill. There is abundant tree kill evidence that says that these volcanoes have been reactivating for years now, ever since about 2005. This failure to recognize the reactivation of the volcanoes also includes lesser known similar volcanoes and volcanic fields all the way from Mexico into mid-British Columbia and all areas in between, as well as in Alaska. The evidence says that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake will be as much a massive volcanic event as an earthquake and tsunami. Why do we say this? Terry Rempel wrote a Cascadia 2020 developments white paper. This next week I'll reference that, so you have a good idea of what he said and why he said that. When the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happened 335 years ago, there was a mariner off at sea that saw either Mount Rainier or Glacier Peak erupting at the time of the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. He saw the volcano erupting. What did we talk about last night? The possible near eruption of Mount Rainier now. A few minutes ago, we talked about the tsunami that's going to be involved with this earthquake. How high is high enough? We believe the last tsunami was anywhere from 100 to 150 feet high. How high is high enough? Quite frankly, there are too many variables to know for certain how high the Cascadia tsunami is going to be. Actually, higher is even better. Why would I say higher is better? My best estimation is around 600 feet to allow for the worst possible potential. 600-foot high wall of water. No one knows absolutely how long or how large this earthquake is going, or this tsunami is going to be. How long? Probably reaching up to Alaska, over to Japan, like I talked about a minute ago, and all the way down to northern Mexico, Southern California and northern Mexico. The tsunami is going to affect the entire west coast of North America, as well as Alaska. The evidence says that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake will as much be a massive volcanic event as it is going to be an earthquake and tsunami event. And I suggest to you when we talk about the Cascadia developments next week, to take notes. to watch our program next week when we talk about Cascadia, because guess what? Each one of us are going to be involved in it. Each one of us are going to be involved in it in some way, shape, or form. And I'm all the way over here on the East Coast. How am I going to be involved with it? Because that 10.0, that 9.0 to 10.0 Cascadia event is going to be felt across the entire United States. It's going to be felt across the entire United States and Canada, all the way up into Alaska and all the way down into northern Mexico. The continent is going to shake like never before, at least 334, 335 years. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. Just briefly, I want to talk about volcanic risks since we talked about Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens last night. A summary. Volcanic ash contains altered silicates. Altered silicates because of the hot magma and the way the hot magma cools. Altered silicates and other minerals in various sizes and toxins also may be included in that ash such as sulfur, strong acids, and fluoride. These particles commonly coated with volcanic acids are quite irritating to the skin and the eyes, the lungs. If rain is involved, which sometimes happens in Washington and Oregon and Canada, that area, if rain is involved, that acid is going to be a direct skin irritant, and the risk to the eyes increases. Why do you think we tell you when you get anywhere near a volcano to wear a long sleeve shirt, gloves, and goggles, and some kind of face protection? One should always use respiratory protection that you might have available. If you don't presently have that, you need to get some. You don't want to expose yourselves to more volcanic ash than is absolutely necessary. We talked about silicates. Let's talk about silicosis. This is not a concern regarding volcanic ash, according to recent medical research. Presumably, this is because the ash is such a strong irritant that is quickly expelled by coughing. Ash is such a strong irritant that it can be expelled from your body by coughing. Now, I can't find any medical studies that conclude that freshly erupted volcanic ash will cause silicosis. I leave you to study for yourself as a reference. Gunnar Gudmundsson, Gunnar, Gunnar, Gudmundsson, Gudmundsson, a Swede. A recent study. Gunnar Gudmundsson, recent study. Respiratory exacerbation of any pre-existing lung condition is the most common issue. Coughing all that gunk up. Respiratory exacerbation. Hydrogen halides. Hydrogen halides are strong acids that are emitted from volcanoes, and these often coat the ash. Hydrogen halides coat the ash. This makes volcanic ash a very strong respiratory irritant. Now, if you're anywhere near any kind of volcano, an inescapable environment with heavy ashfall, without respiratory protection, respiratory failure could result. This is considered rare, as there are few accounts of any kind of large populations being entrapped in heavy ashfall or ashfall environments for any kind of significant time period. Volcanic ash is an eye irritant due to not only the particulate matter, but also the acids that commonly coat the ash. People in Hawaii, after the Kilauea volcano and the Pu'u'o'o volcano dropped out, and all that magma went out into the northeast area. Okay? The northeast fault zone area. And fissures opened up that later became named volcanoes. People were exposed to ash because the lava was erupting in fountains, just like we've seen over in Iceland recently. Volcanic ash is a eye irritant because volcanic ash contains not just particulate matter, but acids that commonly coat volcanic ash. Prolonged exposure with your eyes will lead to corneal abrasions. Corneal abrasions. There are tiny pieces of volcanic glass that are put out with the ash. If that stuff gets into your eyes, it will cut your eyes. Corneal abrasions. Then leading to conjunctivitis. And then, if enough acid and ash exposure, it could cause irreparable damage. Contact lenses should not be worn if you're going to be exposed to any kind of ash, because the contact lenses would tend to hold that ash next to your cornea, and it could cut it. Don't do it. Now, briefly, I want to talk about the ash, the weight of the ash. As the ash is pulverized rock, the ash is pulverized rock from being thrown up into the air through these gas bubbles that are in the molten lava. Pulverized rock is heavy. 1 square yard, 4 inches thick, weighs between 100 and 200 pounds. 1 square yard, 4 inches thick, weighs between 100 and 200 pounds. And if that's the case, if it gets wet, you could only imagine that it would double the weight. We saw this happen over in the Canary Islands at La Palma when Cumbre Vieja erupted, and that ash got onto roofs of homes, and then they got the rain. Then they got the rain over at La Palma, and that ash solidified into almost concrete when the water attached to it and the roofs collapsed. This can collapse roofs. It did. We saw it. Something else. Wet ash is electrically conductive. Wet ash is electrically conductive. It can short circuit transformers. It can short circuit power lines. As that ash is erupted and power lines get that ash loaded onto the power line, especially if it gets wet, all of a sudden We're talking about electrically conducive ash. That could spark a short circuit on that line, and that electrical line will fall. If that ash gets onto an electrical transformer, all heck could break loose, and it could electrify that transformer and burn it down, and leave that whole grid area that transformer service in the dark. Wet ash is electrically conductive. Now, we talked about ash being thrown out of the volcano. We've seen it. We've seen it in Iceland. We've seen it over in the Canary Islands. We've seen it in Hawaii. Ash clouds can disrupt airwave communications. Ash clouds can disrupt airwave communications, mainly due to associated electrical discharge in the air. The ash gets up into the air. Airwaves, electrical waves from radios that are transforming, go up into the air, don't they? If there's ash there, it's going to disrupt radio communications. It's going to totally disrupt radio communications. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake will also disable communications infrastructure in the affected areas. The earthquake itself is going to disrupt radio and television communications in the area where the earthquake happens, because the earthquake is going to shake things completely apart. Transmission towers are going to fall. Transmission towers are going to fall. Electrical lines feeding those towers are also going to fall. So the towers are not going to have power to transmit any radio communications. The only radio communications is between someone with a radio. It's going to be between someone with a radio to another radio. Direct air-to-air, ear, antenna-to-antenna communications. And if those people are in the area where the volcano is going to erupt, the ash can get in the way of your radio communications. It'll disrupt the communications. Okay? Something else that you need to be aware of. The ash clogs are going to happen as ash falls onto cars, air conditioning units, and other places. Ash will cause all kinds of exposure to air filter systems. If you're going to be driving anywhere near the volcano and your car is going to be exposed to ash, make sure you carry several air filters with you, or you will get that ash into your engine and your engine will stall and die. Your pistons won't be able to operate with that ash, the rock, inside your engine. Make sure you have plentiful air filters with you. Several air filters with you so you can keep changing it. Don't allow your car to be disabled because your air filters are clogged. That's going to happen. Extensive ash. Talk for a minute about extensive ash. Volcanism. The erupting volcanoes from multiple stratovolcanoes. In this case, right now, we're talking about Rainier and Mount St. Helens, nearby vicinities. The volcanism is going to produce extensive ash emissions. There are many different disastrous effects from extensive ash levels. You're going to see ash falling on roofs of homes and businesses, and that may get wet and cause the roofs to fail, and could cause the house also to fall. Water contamination. We've seen it happen in Alaska when Mount Redoubt and other volcanoes erupted. It contaminated the water. It can contaminate the water, and fish die off in the ocean. Fish die off in the lakes. And water contamination in the lakes can contaminate our water that we drink. In 1912, ash from Katmai volcano in Alaska covered the surface of all freshwater sources with ash. The acidity of the ash makes the water unsafe for consumption. Even if it is filtered, you would still be consuming acid in the water. A pH adjustment would also be required. But fluoride is also a volcanic ash byproduct, and fluoride is toxic in sufficient quantities. Contaminated water is a very real concern regarding extensive ash output. This contaminated water could last for years. Ash is also toxic to plants. It will be toxic to plants for years. The plants die off. The ash falls to the ground. The ash and the acids and other products in the ash get into the groundwater, the soil, and that soil becomes unproductive for a long period of time. The groundwater. The acidity of the ash can make the water unfit for consumption, even if it is filtered. The toxicity to plants, the plants will die. The plants will die. Fluoride poisoning. Leaf coverage on the plants causing the photosynthesis to stop, blocking the photosynthesis of the leaves, and the plant dies from respiration exposure. Extensive ash can create biological wasteland for years. It can cause biological wasteland for years. Grazing risk for animals. Grazing risk for animals. Not only are plants having an ill effect because of the ash on plants, but grazing risks. Ingestion of significant ash by the animals, the horses, the donkeys, the beef cattle, the rabbits, and other animals that are grazing. That's going to result in a high mortality to the animals in the area. It's going to cause a lot of death to animals in that region for a very long time. Now, this next week, I want to talk about other risks from this earthquake, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, and the risk of blindness and other kinds of risks to humans and animals. Does anybody have a question about anything we've talked about so far? I want to make sure we've answered all your questions so far. Janet Branco is asking, is this scenario that the book of Revelation has been? No. This is not that scenario. It could be similar, but it is not that scenario. Okay? It could be similar, but it is not that scenario. It is not that scenario. Any other questions? Folks, if you don't speak English, don't leave a comment here. Do not make a comment in any other language but English. Okay? It will be taken down. It will be taken down, completely removed. Don't do it. Just don't do it, please. I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but don't put your chat in any other language but English. And then make sure that you don't say anything harmful to me or harmful to anybody else in this chat, because you will be removed and banned. You will be removed and banned. Okay? Any other questions? Any other questions? Now, I've talked a lot. I've given you a lot of information. Janet Braco is asking, is there going to be a replay of this talk? I'm going to keep it here on YouTube. You can go back and reference this program anytime you want, unless YouTube takes it down for whatever reason. They have done that. YouTube has taken down many of my programs over the years. Any other questions? Now, I have been ending our programs on a higher spiritual note for quite a few years now. I want to share a scripture that is very important to me, and that I think can be very important to you as well. This scripture is in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 18 and 19. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 18 and 19. I want to go over verse 18. That they may do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. What is he talking about here? What is Paul telling Timothy? What's he talking about? Let's go back here. First Timothy chapter 6. Paul is talking about the love of money being the root of all evil. Fight the good fight of faith. Trust not in worldly riches. Here, he's telling Timothy and the people here that Timothy is preaching to the importance of life and love. Let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor. Our employers, count our employers as worthy of all honor, that the name of God and his doctrine be not blasphemed. And they that have believing masters, let them not despise them, because they are brethren. Our employers who are Christians are our brethren, but rather do them a service. Give them a full day's work for a full day's pay, because they are faithful and beloved, partakers of the benefit. These things teach and exhort. We need to be teaching these things to our families, our children, our children's children, and anybody else that may need to hear this. You need to teach your people that. Okay? Verse 3. If any man teach otherwise and consent not in wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, and to the doctrine which is according to godliness. Then he says he is proud, knowing nothing, but doting about questions and strifes of words, whereof cometh envy, strife, railings, and evil surmisings, perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds, and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. From such withdraw thyself. Get away. Don't do that. Back here in verse 18, he's talking to us. Charge us that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded. Be not high-minded. Don't think that you're better than anybody else, nor trust in uncertain riches, but only in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. That they do good, that they may be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate. Are we willing to communicate and do the things that God would have us do? Laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come. What have we been talking about tonight? Trying to make ourselves better, knowing what's going to happen and preparing for it. Laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on to eternal life. That's where we're coming from. That's why we do the things we do. That is exactly why we've been talking about earthquakes and preparation for what's happening. Everyone, please take hold of what we've talked about tonight. I'm trying to give you information that could save your lives. I'm trying to give you information to save your lives. Only you can save forests from forest fire. You can save your children's lives by helping them prepare for what's happening. It's not just earthquakes. It's not just volcanoes. It's everything else that's going on across the board. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about what we're doing. We see things happening. I'm trying to protect all of you. I am trying to protect all of you. I love you. I love you. God loves you. That's why we do what we're doing. I love you and God loves you. Please know that. God wants to keep you safe. That's why we're talking. May God bless you and keep you. May God help you prepare for what's going to happen. Brothers and sisters, it is Friday night. If anything else happens tonight, we will be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. In fact, we will be back. If anything else happens tomorrow, we'll be back on the air to tell you about it. We try to take Saturdays off whenever possible. We try to take it off. But folks, if something's going to happen, I'm going to talk about it. I want to try to keep you safe. I want you to know what's going on because nobody else is going to tell you. That is another fact. May God be with you. May God bless you. I will be back on the air for sure Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning at 12 noon Eastern Time with a Sunday school class that we call Come Follow Me, the Savior Said. Come follow me, the Savior said. Oh, Jesus Christ. I absolutely love the gospel of Jesus Christ. Join me here on Sunday at 12 noon Eastern Time for Come Follow Me, the Savior said. We're going to be talking about prophetic revelation. We're going to be talking about the children of Israel. We're going to be talking about you and I. Talking about the prophets, what they've told us to do, as they have received revelation from Jesus Christ. May God bless you and keep you. May God be with you until we meet again. I love you all. Thank you for being here. Please share this program far and wide to your friends, your neighbors, your extended family, your children, and children's children, your aunts and uncles, everybody. Share this program everywhere with the people you contact with on social media and also the people you work with. Everybody needs this information. God be with you until we meet again. We will see you on the other side. Good night, everybody. Much love. Take it easy. I love you very much, and God loves you. Good night, everybody.